Soft.
Hi, and welcome to another edition of Newsmakers TV. I am Jerry Roberts. It is Friday, August 12th, and we are joined by our all-star panel of top local journalists, Nick Welsh of the Santa Barbara Independent, Josh Molina, who is speaking to us from the Crenshaw Bureau today, Jun Starkey of the Santa Barbara Independent, and Ryan P. Cruz of the Independent. So all of the COVID numbers look pretty good, at least locally, but now we have a new problem, June. I guess the World Health Organization and the CDC and the governor have all declared monkeypox, or the HMPXV virus, as I like to call it, to be a public health emergency. How is that going to affect us?
Well, it depends on how many cases we get. Right now, I think we have 3 in Santa Barbara County. So the availability of vaccines really depends on how many cases we have, pretty much completely. And so now that we have 3, we're likely to get more vaccines in the future. I think the last that we've heard, it was supposed to be later this summer, and there's no clarification on when that means or what time frame that is. It's just later this summer. I think
so. There's a shortage. There's a shortage.
There's a shortage in the county. We have about 40 vaccinations, the last that I heard, and likely those would have been, some of those would have been given out to the people who have been infected or exposed to some of the 3 people who have gotten monkeypox so far. I think we're expecting, I don't want to give a number, but hundreds of thousands of vaccines later this summer. But again,
so
it's not clear on the time frame.
Is the public health department treating this as an emergency, or is it just kind of ho-hum?
They are treating it as an emergency, but they're also trying to make sure that the people who need vaccines the most get them first. So that's people who've been exposed or are working in labs where they experiment with the disease. They're trying to make sure that people get them in by need and to not waste the very small amount that we have of vaccines now before we get more.
And is it a preventive vaccine or is it a treatment vaccine?
I'm not sure, actually. I would assume it's preventative because it's not going to the people who have been infected, but I'm not sure.
All right. Nick, you had a couple of interesting medical stories this week, calling attention again to the world famous diabetes center at Sansom Clinic. But I also thought your story on fentanyl was kind of important. Speaking of public health emergencies, record numbers of overdoses.
Well, yeah, we're about 133 overdose deaths by opioids at this point. Most of those, or many of those, are fentanyl related. As a lot of people have heard by last year about this time, I think it would have been last year. The whole year was what, I can't remember, 119, or it was significantly less. And they're expecting it to get up to be about, I've heard 160, I've heard 190 by the year's end. We're on that kind of a flip. I think that everybody has seen a lot more drinking, a lot more drugs, a lot more sort of auto-induced obliteration over the past couple of years. And, you know, opioids are a really effective way to obliterate yourself. And unfortunately, even if you're not meaning to take opioids or fentanyl, you're finding that it's in your cocaine, it's in your methamphetamine. You can't get, even in your pot, I don't know if anybody calls that anymore, cannabis. The only drug I've heard that people don't put it in is LSD.
Well, there's a silver lining.
So I guess if you want to do a little microdosing, there's no word out yet that you have to worry about it being laced with fentanyl.
Well, the bill to legalize hallucinogens in California is still alive, so it survived the suspense file this week. So that.
Oh, good. Well, the interesting fact, I spoke with Paul Erickson of College Hospital this week, who is the head of their psychiatry and addictive services unit. And I didn't know, I mean, everybody knows, fentanyl is so much stronger than heroin and morphine. And I didn't know that it took so much longer to come off of it. If you're going to go through withdrawal, typically it takes about twice as long because it's stored in your body's fats. And if you're going to use Suboxone to help, people kick, you have to be very careful about it. You have to use much smaller amounts because otherwise, for whatever reason, which I don't really understand, it will make it feel like you're going through withdrawal symptoms. So it's stronger, it's everywhere, and it's harder to kick. So cottage is sort of putting out the word, hey, we have services, we have treatment. But if you talk with, and they do, but as Erickson also said, that their withdrawal treatment, the slots available are often taken up. So if you call up saying, I need help,
Hey,
you may have to wait.
how much of a problem is this for, like kids, high school kids and teens? Is that, among the overdoses?
I don't have good numbers there, but anecdotally, what Erickson said is that you see the biggest problem with the younger people because they're just so inexperienced. They're just sort of learning how to experiment with drugs and how to titrate how much they want to take. And so they're the ones who often make the big mistakes.
Yeah. Having used fentanyl legally 10 years ago in the hospital, it tear your head off, man. And it doesn't feel good. Anyway. All right, Josh and Ryan, I guess a victory for Ed St. George this week in his unstinting efforts to improve the neighborhood in and around West Montecito Street. What did was it the Architectural Review Board, Ryan?
Yeah. So officially they moved it to the staff hearing officer, which will kind of it'll go through another review and come back to ABR for full permitting and everything. This one was specifically for the 3 units. So this is a part of a bigger, I think it's 46 total units. There's one with 34 units on the corner and then 2 down the street, one with I think 9 units and one with I think 3. And as part of Ed St. George's, that neighborhood is people can say it's kind of seedy, but I think it's you got to be very careful about saying, I want to clean this up. This is a horrible place, and acting like you are coming into, it's going to make this a much better place when really, it's a hotel. Though there's walls kind of blocking it, so you're not like really adding beauty. You're kind of bringing people there and hoping they're protected on their own from that. But as far as projects go, this one might make it through because it's they're separated, especially the smaller ones. The one on the corner is going to definitely get the most pushback and has gotten the most so far. But yeah, so it is going to come back. Yeah,
Josh, I mean, St. George has said, hasn't he? He wants to clean up the neighborhood. He wants to make it safer and stuff. I'm confused. How many structures are there to the whole project? 3?
Well,
3
yeah, Ryan.
Parking garage.
Yeah, I think Ryan in his story had a good phrase that made me think, oh, I wish I'd have said that. I think it was you like called it a puzzle piece or something like that. It's like a puzzle. It's 3 different, it's like a triangle almost, because you've got one, like the main building is by the car wash at 312 or something, 326. And then you have another one on the corner where like the intersection is, and then you have this one that was before the ABR, which is 3 units. So what he's trying to do is a few things. He originally proposed student housing at these areas, but the city said no. And so he's like, okay, well, it's a zone for a hotel, so we'll give you a hotel. So he's sort of trying to cram odd shapes into position here and making them work. So that's what happened. They had less concern about this project this week because it was small. And it was like 2 stories. It was not visually obstructive.
So have the other ones gone before the board?
Yeah, so the main one, I think it's 322, 326.
Yeah,
that's been approved. He has the right to build that. But the other one on the corner went to HLC. They said, we hate it. It's built too close to the street. There's no entrance. You're going to have to redesign that. So he's going to redesign that. That one's still got a ways to go. So that one on the corner, because it's so visible, is going to be the spot. Now, cleaning it up, those terms are, that's the 7-Eleven, there's a liquor store, there's another mini market across the street. There's a lot of activity. There's a homeless population. So, he's sort of spinning it as, hey, we're right by the beach. This should be a great neighborhood. And of course, that's what he has to do, right? He's trying to get a hotel approved.
Yeah, it was interesting. I wrote about this a couple of weeks ago or whatever. And I mentioned that, it was, the neighborhood was a little run down. I got a lot of pushback from people who live there. I think I got 2 or 3 calls from people saying, that's pretty easy stereotype. It's a little bit more than, students in slum student housing and homeless people. It's not a high income neighborhood, but it's a working neighborhood, and the stereotypes don't do it justice. So you have to watch out where you cast your aspersions.
Exactly, because it's a very, like you said, working class and Latino neighborhood also. And just because a certain people live there doesn't mean it's seedy. And yes, there's that 7-Eleven, and it's right by that train station, and there's people that walk by that people kind of get scared of, but that doesn't mean this needs to be saved, or this needs to be cleaned up. And we've got to be careful when we're talking about the East Side, the West Side communities, and how we're phrasing. We're coming in and making it clean. And
Yeah, how much is it going to cost? I wonder, for a room there. I just seeing that the Motel 6 is now $469. I mean, what kind of clientele is he going? Is he going for luxury or rich people, or just students?
It's right by the train. It's right by the train station. So I assume visitors, and right there, it doesn't seem like you could charge the exorbitant,
Not right now.
luxury prices. So I hope that they'd be.
It's like 2 blocks from the beach. That it seems like that would be the.
They're going to jack up the prices as much as they can, to get it, but.
Ed told me that because he owns that property, that initially it was a vacation rental, and it was not popular. He could not get the rates that he wanted. So what he's kind of done is rented it out to people who work for him, or his friends, or not friends, but associates, So it's been that kind of housing. So it's Santa Barbara. It's going to draw a high price, but I don't think it's going to draw.
But it's a net negative for housing, right?
Yeah, I think there's like 3 housing units there now or something.
All right. Okay.
But Ed would say, hey, I tried to build housing all over the.
Well, and it sounds like he's right. I mean, I don't know. All right. Well, it's incredible but true that next Friday, August 19th, is back to school day, at least in Santa Barbara Unified. June, you had a good service piece on back to school stuff available for kids. Talk about that a little bit and explain to me why back to school day is on a Friday.
I don't know for sure. My thought was that it could be like a nice soft open for coming back. I mean, the first day being a Friday, it's usually kids are a little bit more excited maybe to have the first day of school and to have a weekend right after it. But yeah, the free clothing was mostly centered around a drive that happens in Ortega Park as a part of Occupy Ortega Park. It's the local community members, and then some groups for like the Santa Barbara Ethnic Studies Club and the Occupy Ortega Park Youth Brigade. And they all kind of get together. I think they raised more than like $3,600 this year to make about 300 backpacks, and they have elementary school and high school age kits with like different supplies. But yeah, it's done usually every year on this upcoming Saturday in Ortega Park as part of their Occupy Ortega Park. But there are other organizations in town that offer free clothing and free supplies for young people or people who just need clothing. I think that with inflation and with the way that things have been going lately, a lot of people are going to depend on these services a lot more. And I think, it's great that we have them. I think that there should just be sort of a centralized place where we can say, where can I get clothes? Where can I get things that I need? So that was kind of the point of that story.
Well, your piece, your piece is the centralized place, at least for now. So it's up on independent.com, so people should go there. Josh, of course, the big story in local education this week was Newsmaker's global scoop that Kate Ford is not running for re-election, and it looks like.
Are we turning this into a comedy show, or is this?
I don't know. it looks like Gabe Escobedo has moved quickly. Let's talk about that in a minute. But first, you also had a scoop, I will confess, by just recycling Nick Masuda's Facebook page, that you that you have Hilda Maldonado at the zoo and making ceramics. What's that about?
I actually don't follow the Santa Barbara Unified School District on Facebook or Nick Masuda. It was
Why not? That's a great way to
employees.
get information.
It was employees of the district who reached out to me and said, can you believe that they're doing this? So my story was basically they did a 2-day retreat. They decided to go feed fake capybaras at the zoo as a way to build leadership and bond with each other. They also went to Dunn School, private Dunn School, boarding school in Los Olivos, and they decided to do some leadership training exercises there.
But that
And they also-
principal apparently is a star.
He is completely a star.
So
And as Nick Masuda told me, that relationship was developed by Hilda Maldonado and her ability to develop connections with the school.
all right,
and
mark
then-
it down. 1:55 on August 12th. Josh said something positive about Hilda Maldonado.
I don't say positive or negative. I just state facts. It's
Uh-huh.
really how people hear them. And then they went to some place in Buellton where they decided to reenact scenes from Ghost and create this ceramics and this pottery and these clay mugs as a way to bond with each other. Now, obviously, this is a corporate thing. This is a thing that companies with money do as a way to get out of the office. It is a bad look if you're somebody who's having trouble making the nexus between that activity and what we're talking about with an achievement gap with Latino students and students of color and white students. It's hard to make the nexus that Hilda Maldonado needs to bond with her almost entirely new cabinet
It's all
by-
new. Yeah. It's all
by
new
taking
people.
part in these activities. In itself, there's nothing wrong with that, but people who are concerned about how their taxpayer dollars and time are spent,
How much did it cost?
it cost maybe not much, $2,000 or $3,000 from the professional development budget. But obviously they're employees, so that work could be done. They could be doing other things. So anyway, that's what they did. And Nick Masuda, who, by the way, I wouldn't call him part of the mass exodus because
Well, that was
he
it.
probably
Yeah,
would
kind
have
of an
found another
interesting-
job anyway,
yeah,
knowing his
throwaway
pattern.
with me. He's leaving.
But yeah, so he's gone. He's another PIO out the door. So he posted on Facebook these photos, I guess, as a way to, sort of boast, like, hey, look at this incredible leader. So I did also talk to former cabinet members who recently retired in June and have, or I shouldn't say retired, but taken other positions. And they called this outrageous. They said we've done things where we bonded, but we've never done something like this.
But June, you will agree with me, will you not, that feeding fake capybaras is good practice for dealing with the junior high students?
I mean, it should be a real capybara or maybe a hippopotamus to really understand how to deal with a junior high student. But
So
Why-
where is a fake capybara?
What is it?
Where do they get it?
Excellent point.
The stuffed animal.
it's a
I'm
stuffed
sorry.
animal. It's a pic. There's
Oh.
literally a picture of them giving grass to a stuffed animal. Which I
Nick,
agree with.
Nick Welsh, why
Really,
don't we
really-
have those retreats over here? I want
I
to go
know,
on a retreat. And
But Josh,
They'll take you
given
to-
the
they'll-
mass exodus from the administrative, cabinet, don't they need to resort to such extreme measures
need
to
a trust
do
fall.
instantaneous bonding to create that sort of esprit de corps instantly? Because otherwise, the students will suffer.
So what, Becchio is the only guy left, right?
They need a camp like Remember the Titans where they go.
And I'm not applying for the job, Josh. That's yours.
Josh is,
Well,
how
I've already
many, how
turned down
many,
that
peop-
job once, so I'm
how
not
many
gonna turn
people
it
on
down
this show
twice.
are applying? Yeah, that's a key question. Much better benefits, I'm sure.
Come on, Josh, this is your case to do. You want me inside the tent pissing out, not outside the tent pissing in.
This is a big career pivot for you, Josh.
Yeah.
I've already pivoted and I pivoted back, so I don't think that's gonna happen. But as June knows, and I don't want to steal what she knows, but I guess she found out that Barbara Kiani is going to be doing some temporary PIO duties.
Wow.
I didn't talk to Barbara, June did, but that's pretty significant. Now they're going back to where they started.
Yeah,
with
really.
PIOs.
Golden oldies there.
Back to school.
Lovely. It was really nice to meet her. She's definitely very nice and lovely.
Yeah, she is.
All right. So Gabe Escobedo, whose name seems to be on everyone's lips at all times, the Planning Commission and of course the Formation Commission controversy, which we've talked about. He had a brief run for assembly that lasted about 3 weeks. But now he's going to run for Kate's seat, and it seems to me he's a formidable front runner. There's another person signed up, Efgenia Banalis, if I have it correct. And I think there's probably some connection to the district election Banalis suit on that. I'm not sure. I haven't talked to her. But Gabe will be what? How will he be different or similar than Kate, do you think, if he is elected?
I take that one.
Sure.
Okay. So Gabe is Mexican American. He grew up poor. He grew up in LA. He's going to understand the plight that Mexican American, Latino, Black students of color feel in the classroom when they're not called on, when their expectations are low, when they're not included as part of the process. And he's going to be able to identify that and be able to hold that new cabinet accountable. He knows what it's like to be asked, do you speak Spanish? He knows what he knows what it feels like to be asked, do you speak just English? Are you bilingual? That's a question no one's ever asked. I don't know, maybe you, Jerry, maybe Nick. No one's ever asked that, but that's a question Mexican Americans get. And it's a judgment, and it's an implicit bias, and it's a different form of discrimination that is specific to the Latino culture. So having Gabe there is going to be much better than having, Kate is strong in other ways, but Gabe is going to bring that perspective, which is going to be super important, and holding that cabinet accountable. Gabe is going to win. He's got every endorsement in the world. He's doing
he's already endorsed by Kate, Laura, Monique.
And he's doing it the right way because he stepped aside instead of challenging Greg Hart. That built up some capital with the Democratic Party. And I would be surprised to see anybody beat him.
Yeah, and that's the kind of candidate you really would want to see. Like Josh said, like growing up in Santa Barbara in the public schools, I mean, I don't know, I couldn't name a board member or Latino executive administrator that spoke up with me. And like Josh said, I had a lot of that growing up where I got misplaced in bilingual classes because I had a single mother or because I had a Spanish surname, and they just assumed, hey, he should be in the bilingual classes. And that affected me growing up, and to see somebody kind of on the board that will kind of fight for you. And he runs a good meeting on the Planning Commission as the chair. He's done a great job. He has some tough issues that he has to deal with the projects that come across there, or Formation Commission, but he's done a great job, and I think he will be good on this board.
All right. Well, I do want to
reflect the student population, and with the student population being majority Latino, there should be a majority Latino student board.
Yeah. Well, I do want to say a word on behalf of Kate Ford, who I think is exactly the kind of person that we want to see as candidates, and her knowledge and background, I think, have been very helpful. And I think combining her departure with Laura Capps, who's moving on to the Board of Supervisors, is not great news for Hilda, because those two were, Laura ran the search, and those two were I think the strongest backers of Hilda on the board. So a lot of change, I think.
Are you saying that Hilda maybe in June might be announcing she's taking another job down the road? Is that what you're saying?
I don't know. She's got a 3-year contract. She could. I know you're trying to drive her out of town, but
I'm just trying to do normal reporting. That's all.
Yeah, let's see. Here's my narrative. Let me put a new lead on it and then run all the A matter.
Oh, okay, right. Jerry, you went there. The real story is, who are you going to talk to on the school board without Kate and Laura there?
I think
you better start being nice to Gabe right now. That's all I got to say.
I'm not worried about that. Let's just put it that way. And with you in the public information office, Josh, I think I'm golden. I have to say that your very smart remarks just now. If you should use that in your tryout tape that you send to
I'll turn state's evidence and feed you a Pulitzer, Terry, if I had that job. That's what I do.
All right, a couple of other things real quick. June, we had this weird or bad episode up in the valley of two, were they kids or what were they burning, taking a pride flag and burning it, and then I guess Wednesday there was some sort of event to put it back up. What's that all about?
Yeah, so I think it was last Thursday or the Thursday before that, a pride flag from St. Mark's in the Valley was cut, somehow cut down and stolen. And later on Snapchat, you can hear their voices. They don't show their faces. And it's hard to tell how old they are because they sound incredibly immature. They're saying what, if you can imagine what an 8-year-old would say to try and sound homophobic and edgy, is something like that. But I imagine to do that, it must have been in the early morning hours. So they must have been at least people who could drive. So I'm not sure who's done it. There have been no charges filed.
Is there an investigation or is anybody going to pursue it?
There was an investigation, and apparently detectives say that they, the two suspects that they found admitted that they had burned and stolen flags before. And apparently Jade just reported this. There was another flag stolen yesterday from a coffee house in Los Olivos, and detectives apparently think that they're both connected. So I'm not sure who they are and why no charges have been pressed yet. If they think that if they've admitted to stealing and believe that they're connected with 2 other stealings of a pride flag, but yeah, that's what's going on.
It is unusual, and I've heard a lot of comments already just from people like asking why. You know, they're listed as young adults. They're listed as admitting to the crime, but it's really kind of a weird phrasing of the release of, we have charges at the DA. It's in the DA's hands. There's a weird kind of disconnect right now.
Is it a hate crime? Or are they being charged?
It's considered a hate crime, yes, but they were not charged with it. The charges were sent to the DA of theft and a hate crime.
Well, with the nation on the brink of civil war, it's good to know we have a store of knuckleheads in Santa Barbara County too. Speaking of Civil War, Josh, the big axe throwing center
Segue.
opened this week. How's business?
I went down there and there were a couple people there throwing axes. It's kind of the buzz of the community. Everyone's talking about it. The Independent did a good story on it. Newshawk did a story. Obviously, I did a story on it, and people are really excited about the fact that you can throw an axe at a wooden bullseye target in downtown Santa Barbara.
And you can drink.
You can drink.
You can drink. Oh yeah.
I thought you can't drink.
I thought they didn't have a liquor.
For the record, I'm pretty sure you cannot drink there.
They can't
You
drink.
should not be able to drink.
Drinking.
No, Nick's not going.
No. I talked to him about that. He said that in order to get a liquor license, it would involve all sort of different renovation. And he said, there's enough places for people to drink. They don't need to drink, in my establishment. A while ago, he had thought about maybe doing that, but he's not going to do that now. So it's a really cool concept. He goes in there, he teaches you how to throw it overhead. I did the one-handed baseball throw, and I got a bullseye.
I don't know if I believe that bullseye on Instagram, Josh.
I took my daughter.
Body cam. We need
me,
the body cam.
and she can verify that I got a bullseye. Now, we're not going to talk about how many times it took me before.
Yeah, your daughter. There's a source. Yeah.
You can't be in the room when we ask her.
There were other witnesses there.
Well,
But
I will say,
let's just say after I threw the bullseye, I stopped. I quit. I didn't want to have to do it.
So your axe throwing career is over. You're going.
I probably won't be going to that, but I do recommend, if you're talking about axe throwing, you guys do watch Prey. It's a new Predator movie, and it does feature Comanche Native Americans, and it's a really cool movie, really good story. I don't know why I'm plugging it, but it does have to do with axe throwing.
June, do you understand the appeal of axe throwing, or do you think it's just another remnant of the sexist patriarchal institutional that we all live under?
I don't know. It looks fun.
You know, I think women can throw an axe
Women
as
can
well
throw
as
an
a
axe.
patriarchal
If
white
you watch
man,
Prey,
Jerry.
it is a woman throwing an axe
Oh
in
my
the
God,
movie.
Ryan.
I will say this, Jerry.
I'm
Jerry,
only asking questions. I'm just asking questions.
I will say this, if you're an educator at Santa Barbara Unified, your retreat makes sense for you to go feed fake copy bars. But if you're a journalist, retreat should be throwing axes because we've got a lot of aggression to get out.
As long as they're fine with me taping a picture of Josh's face to the bullseye, I think that it could be really fun for all of us.
Throwing axes at fake capybaras.
Well,
All right.
journalists
His
journalists
business
should,
just doubled, yeah.
should
All
know
right.
self-defense, right, Jerry? Segue.
Well, speaking of self-defense, yes, the Krav Maga craze is now hitting, I guess, downtown Goleta. It sounds pretty cool, actually. What is that, Ryan?
Yeah, so I went for a training session. I'm still pretty sore from that. Instructor Pedro, if you're listening in, that was a really good workout. But Krav Maga, it's a self-defense that's really reality based, and you know, it was created in 1930s Bratislava, Czechoslovakia, and for the early World War II German occupations, and in the Jewish ghettos, people, you know, they weren't big and they wanted to be able to defend themselves, women, people that, you know, weren't really trained, and to defend themselves in the streets if they had to. And it's very reality based, and especially in today where you don't know, you're walking in a store, in a mall, you don't know what's going to happen. That, as we saw, Solomon Rushdie got arrested on stage. You never know what's going to happen, and it's really about being aware of your surroundings. They really push, you don't want to fight. Nobody wants to fight. You shouldn't go out looking for a fight, but really be aware of other people's body language, and if they're being attacked, and if they're on you, and if they're coming. It's very intuitive and very uses the instincts that you would do, and kind of shows you the step by step. And I mean, one of the things, yeah, it was pretty good.
Yeah, check out Ryan's story in the
First person I heard was doing it was an emergency room nurse at College Hospital. And her boyfriend was telling me that things have gotten so hairy in the ER during COVID that and people's tempers are just so at the boiling point that some of the nurses and techs there feel the need to take this training.
Really, they're Krav Maga trained.
Yeah.
That's interesting. All right. A couple other quick follows, Nick. The tiny homes project opened. How's that going?
You know, I checked in on Monday, so I don't know the last couple of days, but it's, well, fine. I think the word here is finally. I mean, we thought it was going to open early this year, like early January, and here we are, August, and there's been, you know, some delays. It looks beautiful in there. There's 35 people chronically homeless. You know, a lot have sort of addiction issues, mental health issues. You know, the most vulnerable of the vulnerable, and how, you know, they're going to put them up in these tiny homes over on the 1,000 blocks of Santa Barbara Street. Right next door is an investment house. About half a block away is the police department, the district attorney's office, and the courthouse. So it's right downtown in the heart of everything. And so it's kind of a brand new approach. It's not a shelter. The idea being, we want people not to be in congregate care, but to have a room of their own where they can lock the door behind them.
So it's transitional housing?
It's what they call transitional housing. And so the idea is you go there, you get off the streets, you get there, you sort of chill, you get the services you need to sort of make the jump into another form of housing.
All right.
And but they did, you know, there's 35 people who are going to be in there. So they're doing like 5 or 6 a day, so that people can start moving gradually and get the hang of it.
All right. And real quickly, story we've talked about the last couple of weeks, Diablo Canyon. Just before we came on, the governor wants it to stay open till 2035 and wants to give or lend PG&E $1.4 billion to fix it. We'll talk more about that last time, but Olivia Newton-John, a Santa Barbara resident, I didn't know she was a Santa Barbara, passed this week at 73. June, you had a little farewell to her. What's why are people kind of interested in her passing?
Well, she was an interesting person, obviously. Funny enough, I had never seen Grease before until I think 2 days before she passed away. So I was very sad when I heard that she passed. I mean, she was just such an iconic person. All of her movies and her performances. She was a huge icon in the disco scene in the late 70s. And so she kind of became this LGBT icon because of that. Later in life, after she was diagnosed with breast cancer, she became an advocate of using medicinal cannabis to wean yourself off of opiates. So she was, at some point she talks about this sort of later in her life, but she at one point used marijuana to completely wean herself off of opiates, which is very difficult to do when you're a 3-time breast cancer, diagnosis, and you're in a lot of pain and you're kind of constantly trying to manage that pain while living your life. But yeah, she had like a 12-acre horse ranch in Santa Ynez. I guess Nick told me that she was a horse girl.
Did not know that. Nick, were you aware that she was in residence in Santa Barbara County?
It was one of those things where it's about 55, 45. When I heard she was in Santa Barbara, I said, oh, she must be up in the valley. And I sort of had some subliminal idea that she had horses.
Yeah.
But I
She
wouldn't
does.
put a real
But
number.
you're mixing her up with, perhaps you're conflating her with Bo Derek.
No, John Travolta in his airplanes.
Yeah, well, Josh, I don't know, but I developed a sort of a media crush on her, I think in the early 80s. Get physical, let's get physical. And she had that headband. Do you remember the headband?
Leg warmers.
And the leg warmers. Yeah, that was a
Well, if you looked at my YouTube watching history, my favorite song of hers is Magic, and I've watched that video a few times. But she's a transcendent figure, like multiple generations. So she's somebody who appeals to people who in their 20s, 40s, 60s, and beyond for different reasons. And in pop culture, that's so rare because most of the time people get really big for a few years and then we never hear from them. So she's like that Elton John, that Billy Joel. She's sort of part of our Americana. And she's also like this really, like June talked about, just this activist, this sweet, nice person. And we always sort of picture her as like that Grease, the actress. And then when you hear she dies, you're just like, oh, that's so sad. And I can't believe, June, you just saw Grease for the first time.
all right.
It was a good time. It was so good.
Let's
It was
leave it,
such a good movie.
leave it there. Olivia Newton-John, may her memory be a blessing. Thanks to Ryan Cruz and to Josh Molina, Nick Welsh, and Jun Starkey. We will see you next time on Newsmakers.